Welcome everyone. I know that it is end of year, and so the fact that you pulled yourself into this webinar, still pushing for HR progress, even at the end of the year, says a lot. Welcome, welcome. I hope the end of year isn't hitting you all too hard, but if it is, don't worry, because we're going to have a chance to chat about it. My name is Melanie Naranjo. I head up the people team here at Athena. We're a compliance training company, everything from harassment prevention all the way to cybersecurity and phishing simulators. And we are so excited to be chatting with you all today. One of the things that we really feel strongly about in the world of HR is idea sharing, resource sharing, and really connecting all of us together in a community. And so we're really excited to be able to share some of our learnings with you all and get to learn from you as well as we go through this session. For anyone who's new, just a few things to keep in mind so that you can have a great interaction with us. These are very interactive sessions, and so I will ask questions and ask you to write your answers in the comments, and I will call on people to unmute themselves. Amanda, who's behind the scenes, will give you access to unmute yourselves. If you don't want to be called on, I don't want that to be a deterrent to you participating, and so all you need to do is put an asterisk next to your response, and that will be my message, my alert not to call on you. So you can still participate and not be called on if you prefer. Just put the asterisk and I will respect it. Okay, with all that said, let's go ahead and get started. Today we're going to be talking about how to boost employee morale, especially when you're hitting that end of year slump, which we are all feeling just a little bit, I'm sure. So what we're going to cover today, we're going to talk about the problem, 3 tips that can help, very tactical, actionable tips with examples. I promise you will never walk away from one of my webinars without specific examples. And then we will have time for Q&A. We had several questions come in advance, so I'll answer some of those. And if you all have any questions that come up throughout the session or at the end, just drop them in using the Q&A function, not in the comments, because I can't track them all there. And I will make space to answer as many as possible. And then at the very end, we always do just a very quick Athena spotlight just to share a little bit more about who we are and what we do. It would be great if you all could stick around, but I also understand that schedules are busy, so let's go ahead and get started. Now, before we get into the meat of this, I did want to share a special announcement that we're pretty excited about. It's a new thing that we're doing. We are hosting peer coaching sessions. Where this came from, we had an in-person, our first ever in-person Athena conference last month. It was a huge success. And what we realized is people love these webinars and the interactivity, but people also really enjoyed having a space to live peer coach with each other and share things that they were working on or struggling with. And so we're going to replicate those. Once a month, we're going to start hosting peer coaching sessions. Our first one is happening tomorrow, and we already have over 80 people registered. Don't worry, we're going to be leveraging breakout groups, and so you'll still be paired with just 1 or 2 people. This is a great opportunity if anything that we talk about here today sort of like catches your interest and you want to explore it further, or if you're just stressed and you want to have someone else to lean on, you want to start building your peer community, sign up for a peer coaching session. Amanda is sharing the link in the comments if she has, if they haven't already, and feel free to sign up. It's happening tomorrow. We're very excited for this. I think it's going to be a good one. Okay, with that said, let's go ahead and jump into the meat of today's session. So let's talk about the problem. Let's do our first pulse check question in the comments. 1 to 5, 5 being strongly agree, 1 being, Melanie, what are you talking about? It's been a tough year. It's been a tough year. Am I getting, okay. Oh, really? Really? All 5s? Oh, some 1s. Ooh, you know I'm going to call on the 1s because I got to hear about those. Okay, let's start with the 5s, okay? Let's do, Brienne Schneckenberger. Please let me know if I'm mispronouncing that. Brienne Schneckenberger. If you could unmute yourself, tell me a little bit more about why this is a 5 for you.
Yeah, you pronounced it right. I think just coming off of, we're still in a world that has COVID, but we're kind of not having COVID. It's trying to find that balance of like the return to office and still trying to keep everybody happy and engaged while knowing there's still a lot of conflict going on both in people's personal lives and their work lives.
Yep. Okay. I can imagine many people identify with that. Thank you very much, Brienne. Let's call 1 more person. Somebody included a very cool emoji. Isida Kalushi, please let me know if I'm mispronouncing that. Isida Kalushi, Isida. If you could unmute yourself and tell us a little bit more about, first of all, what is this emoji? And second of all, why a 5?
Hi there. Hi, Melanie. Um, uh, so I'm not sure what emoji I shared, but I do think it's been a tough year, just based on transformational changes that we've had internally within the company, and not necessarily in a negative way, but there just been a lot of high volume work with very lean resources. And so that puts a lot of pressure on everyone.
Thank you very much. Can I get in the comments a +1 if anybody else is feeling anything that was just shared? Anybody else feeling like, yeah, we're being asked to do more with less, and it's not just the people team, it's everybody. Oh, yeah, literally all of it. Okay, so you've touched on a chord here, Isida. Thank you so much. All right, it's been a tough year. Let's call someone who gave a 1, just because I always love to like bring a moment of sunshine, and maybe there's something we can learn from this. Julie, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm not going to get this right. I know it. Julie Kasprisk. I'm so sorry. Please help me. Julie.
Casper Zick. Super embarrassing. I have dyslexia and I switched the numbers. It was actually a very tough year. As was already commented, we did a reorg. The announcement was a few weeks ago. Myself and several people were put on a reduced schedule and salary reduction. So embarrassing. I did not listen to the instructions.
Oh my
But
God.
start Athena this last year and people responded well to the training. So I guess, okay, that's the one.
Oh my gosh. I love that. Oh, thank you. Welcome, Athena customer. Love it. And this was not a plant. This was not a plant.
No. Just my poor listening skills and switching numbers.
No worries at all. Thank you so much, Julie. And I think that's a really, first of all, let me just say I'm so sorry. I'm sure that you are not alone in that. I've talked to many people who've talked about reduction in hours, reduction in workforce. It's been a tough year, all. I'd love to take just one level deeper here before we go into some actionable tips. I want to get to the emotion of what this feels like. 1 to 5, who here feels, right? I feel more motivated and energized to work closer to work the closer we get to end of year. So like December, I'm peak motivation, 5 being peak motivation, 1 being I'm drained, I'm done. When is the holiday? Yeah, okay. Yeah, getting a few low scores. I'm gonna call on someone here because I think this goes hand in hand with the previous question. Let's do Kimberly Hunt. Kimberly Hunt, HUNT. If you could unmute yourself, I would love to know. First of all, why do you feel less motivated at the end of the year? And second, what is the impact that has on your day-to-day, on your strategy at work?
I just feel so exhausted, like just, pushing through the Q3 and, trying to finish up strong for Q4. I gave it all. I left it all on the court, coach. Like there's nothing left I could give. Not to mention, my own family and Christmas and holiday. It's just too much. The impact it has is as HR, we sometimes keep the temperature. So if I look drained, then everybody else thinks it's okay to look drained. So, and then putting on that false face, I'm tired.
Oh my gosh. I don't know if you're looking at the comments, Kimberly, but you have some real sort of like sympathy and agreement. Like what you said struck a chord. People super empathize with what you are saying. It's rough. It's exhausting. And on top of that, to your point, we've got our own personal lives outside of this. And another layer, we feel like we can't even show the truth of what we're feeling because we're sort of like a mascot for the company, right? And oh my gosh, if you see that I'm unhappy or that I'm feeling unmotivated, it's going to have an impact on everyone else. Great point. Let's call on one more person. Let's do Let's see, let's see. I'm trying to pick on someone who didn't put an asterisk. Let's do Rachel Coogan. Rachel Coogan, Rachel. If you could unmute yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. I was just making sure I could unmute. I didn't know the button was going to be there till it appeared. It's been a rough year. I think I was also scored, we did a riff and a restructure and are just trying to sort of hold tight in these, I don't know, rapids, it feels like. And as we close out the year, sometimes I feel like, what can we actually do as a people team to make a difference this month today? So it's hard to want to focus on work instead of stocking stuffers, honestly.
Ooh, wait, can I ask a follow-up question? Because I want to make sure I'm understanding. When you ask, like, what can we do? Is that from a sense of like a rhetorical, like, it doesn't feel like there's much more impact we can have in this last month? Or is it like, no, really, we have 1 month left. What can we do?
Both.
Okay, you know what? I imagine you are not alone there. I'm curious to know, what about end of year do you think, in your opinion, feels so extra exhausting?
I think knowing that there's a new year around the corner, which I think for a lot of people gives you sort of that fresh start. We close the last week of the year as well. We have a recharge week, which I so love. And as we get closer, it's just like you're waiting. It's like that senioritis a little bit, like ready to just be like, close out this brutal year, just sort of be done, close the book, and like what's next for us. Yeah.
100%. Thank you so much for sharing. And you're getting some real support in the comments as well. Okay. So if we are feeling this way, imagine what our employees are feeling, right? And I say that because, like, yes, in some ways, the HR role and function is so unique because we get the burden of so many people's emotions. And also, we have some level of privilege in that we have savvy into the behind the scenes. Like, we know what managers are saying, we know what leadership is saying, and we have that context. Imagine being an employee who doesn't have that context, who's just sort of like floating at work and feeling all these feelings, right? And maybe doesn't feel like they have a sense of control. Employee morale is a pretty serious thing. It tends to be low around the end of year. In fact, I don't know if this is maybe, I think it's common knowledge, but in case it's not, January tends to be the month when employees are looking for other opportunities the most. This is the time, to your point earlier. I'm so sorry. I forgot your name, but somebody here had mentioned how, yeah, I'm thinking about the holiday season. I'm thinking about next year and trying to do something new, right? Our employees are doing the same thing. They're sort of thinking like, is this really where I want to be? Is this really what I want to do again next year, right? And if these things go unchecked, if employee morale, if we don't tackle it, right, it leads to higher turnover. People are not going to want to repeat this. They're going to go want to see if the grass is greener somewhere else. They're going to try something else. It's also going to lead to lower performance productivity. We talked about that level of exhaustion, right? We talked about feeling like I've given my all. I don't know how much more there is left to give. Decreased innovation and creativity, right? If you're not feeling it, how would you be innovative? How would you be thinking about new things? You're thinking about stocking stuffers. You're trying to get a break. You've got that senioritis, right? And finally, I'll say that it can also lead to increased tension across the company. So things that were sizzling or bubbling, they just get worse because no one's talking about it. And the morale is just bad. And it just keeps sort of like adding to the cesspool of unhappiness, right? And so what I want to do today is really explore what can we do about it, right? Yes, it's good to acknowledge this thing, and let's acknowledge that there's this thing that we need to work on, but let's be solution oriented. What can we do? To the earlier question, right? What can we do starting in December to try and have an impact? Because sometimes it can feel like maybe there isn't very much we can do. I'm here to say that there is. First and foremost, so tip number 1, structured lines of communication, which sounds very fancy in corporate speak. I promise it's not. Let's fix that. I want to give you all a day in the life. I'm gonna give you a few moments of silence just to read through this scenario, okay? And then I'll ask a question. Okay, yes or no in the comments. Does this sound familiar? Anybody experienced anything like this? Oh, okay. Okay. I'm seeing a lot of big responses. Yes, 100%. All caps. Let's call on someone new. Let's do yes, all caps, Heather Mock, M-O-C-K. Heather, if you could unmute yourself, tell me a little bit more about this. You've seen this before, in what capacity? What tends to happen? Give me the context here.
Yeah. Yes, I have seen this. I am actually new to this current employer. I've been here about 5 months now, and in trying to get acclimated and to reach out to everyone throughout the company, I've been hearing this more and more. Apparently, there were some layoffs that happened earlier in the year, and we just went through a rather large RIF within the past 2 months. And so this is constantly top of mind for my employees.
100%. And listen, it makes sense, right? This very big, scary thing just happened. It's top of mind. But let me ask you, why do you think your employees, and not just your employees, employees in general, right? I want to give you some here. Why do you think employees do this? Why don't they just go to their manager? Like that's what their manager's for. Why are they just sort of like talking to each other about it and sort of building it into this big thing, or going straight to HR and now making it feel like it's been escalated? Like, why don't employees just go to their managers?
I think it's multiple reasons. I think most recently it's been due to a lack of trust.
Katie Hayes just
Um,
in the comment section. Yeah, Katie as well. Yep. Lack of trust.
Yeah, it's been due to a lack of trust. I think once the relationship is sullied between the manager and the employee, they don't go to them about much of anything.
Ooh, and let me ask one last follow-up question. Don't worry, you don't have to go into specifics of like any specific company, but just at a general level, when you say that like trust can be broken from a manager, what kinds of things break trust in your opinion? Like what have you seen happen historically?
Saying one thing and doing another.
Mm,
Not offering your employees the type of support that they've needed up till this point. Not being forthcoming about upcoming changes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. And you're getting some agreement in the comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is a pretty common situation. It's a very real problem that we do need to tackle, right? And a lot of it comes down to communication, trust, that relationship with the manager and the direct report. Now, there is a snowball effect when these things happen, right? Your employees might stew on it, but they also might spiral, right? I'm so panicked about losing my job that I can't even focus on getting my work done. It might give way to unproductive venting. And so now it's just this toxic thing where, well, I actually, at my last company, I actually knew someone who they had a going meeting with a group of people and it was just for venting, and just like 30 minutes every week, they just got together to vent because they just needed an outlet. Or communicating to people who can't help, right? In this scenario, they went to HR, which is great, but imagine a scenario where they go to someone else and that person can't do anything about it. So it's almost like that feedback just died. It didn't go anywhere, right? Which means we can't do anything about it. Or by the time we hear about it, it's because it's snowballed so much that now it's this huge disaster that we could have nipped in the bud if we had known about it early on. And so I want to talk about how we can redirect these things a little bit more. And I'll make sure to talk about the trust aspect as well while we go through this. We want to redirect employees' communications towards more productive channels, right? Yes, it could be managers. Yes, it could be employee engagement surveys. Yes, it could be HR. We want to make sure that they're going to the right places, right? Now, some common channels can help. I put these here because, they're very common, they're popular. How could I not mention them? We could do stay interviews. We could do annual engagement surveys. We could do manager feedback surveys. And by the way, if you're curious about any of these, let me know in the comments because we have resources on all of these. You can steal our templates. That's fine. We share them all. But right, these can be heavy lift, right? It's an annual engagement survey is not nothing, right? You got to put the questions together, you got to send it out, you got to actually do the summary, you got to share, you got to come up with a game plan, right? It's a pretty heavy lift. I want to especially as we're thinking about our own burnout, our own low morale, throw out some lower lift options your way that I think also can go a long way towards building some of that trust that we were talking about, right? So one is Athena's introspection. We do this at Athena. We have what's called an introspective question of the week. And what that is we actually feed our managers specific questions to ask their direct reports to make sure that during their one-on-ones, that they're not overlooking some of these fundamental EQ checks that tell and signal to their direct reports, one, I care, and two, let's do something about it, right? And this has a dual benefit of one, building that relationship, but two, it serves as sort of like a pulse survey without the survey for the company, right? Because managers will then surface things to me if they're important, because every manager asks the same question every week, right? And so it's sort of like a company-wide pulse check. Let me give you some examples of what I'm talking about. And if anybody's interested, let me know in the comments. We can share this in the follow-up email of resources. So an example question might be, on a scale of 1 to 5, how motivated do you feel when you come to work every day? And then follow-up question, what would it take to get that score one number higher, right? Or what is the biggest stress on your plate right now? And what can we do about it, right? Or if we want to do one that's building towards trust, right? What do you value most in a manager, right? And then having those conversations. Now, here's the thing, right? Most managers, unfortunately, they're so busy, they won't necessarily intentionally think to ask those questions. And so just having a steady list of questions, we schedule it on Slack. We just put the whole list at the start of the year, and every week they get their question and they just incorporate it into their one-on-one. Very, very easy, very low lift, but very high impact. Another thing that you could do, Feedback Fridays. So at Athena, every other Friday, managers and direct reports are required to meet with each other for 30 minutes and share feedback with each other. And it's what could be better, what was great, and actually, sorry, I'm formatting it wrong. So it's, you get feedback on yourself and feedback on your manager, and then you go down the question of like what could be better and what was great. And then lastly, facilitated peer coaching sessions. So this is one that I'll talk a little bit more about later on in the presentation, but this is basically a way to open discussion. So for example, hey, do you know what all? I recognize that everyone's feeling a little bit stressed. Let's have a voluntary PR coaching session. Anyone who wants to pop in, we'll do a brainstorm on like what's stressing people out and what could be better, how we could help. Here are some tips for success, right? You don't have to mandate it. It could be low lift, optional, right? And it's just an easy organic conversation. I'm seeing some things in the comments, but I imagine if there's anything that I need to address, please drop it in the Q&A section, and that way I'll see it. Okay, great. Now let's do tip number 2, transparent acknowledgement, okay? Now, 1 to 5 in the comments, if you could all tell me how much you agree. 5, I agree. 1, I don't agree. If we don't acknowledge it, the problem will just go away, right? If we don't acknowledge it, it'll go away. Yeah. Okay, I'm seeing some ones. I'm not seeing a lot of agreement with this. Okay, let's call on Gerardo Madrid. Gerardo Madrid, if you could unmute yourself, tell me a little bit more about your thought process here. Why do you disagree with this statement?
Yeah, because I don't feel like we should always have that elephant in the room. I feel like if you aren't asking those introspective questions, if you aren't asking people how they're doing, you're not going to get the full picture or the context as to maybe why they're being quiet, why they're not participating as much, or why they're behind on their goals, etc. So it's always best to have those two-way, conversations and always ask for feedback. So I love that Feedback Friday practice that you guys do at Athena, and I just checked out that PDF that was shared, and yeah, that's a very good tip to share.
Good. I love it. I love it in particular because it removes the burden of unsolicited feedback, right? It just normalizes this thing and really shows people that we care. And it just incorporates it into the structure of the culture. Can I ask you, I'm curious about I have a follow-up question here. So I understand that you don't agree, and it makes sense, valid reasons as to why. And yet my question to you is, be honest, have you ever seen at a company someone take this tactic? We're just not going to talk about it. Let's just not, it's not too much drama. We're going to breeze past it. Anybody, have you ever seen that?
Yes,
Yeah.
I have definitely seen leadership try to say, hey, let's just not talk about it. Let's just see if it'll go away. But I always recommend no, like here are some frequently asked questions that I think we're already going to get. So I kind of already know what kind of questions, and I ask, what kind of questions do you think our employees are going to be asking in their head? And let's go ahead and answer those in this call, that because some people are probably going to be too afraid to speak up and ask those questions. So we kind of already know we should have like a gist of what questions they might be having. So let's just go ahead and remove that anxiety from them and answer those questions. And I feel like if we do that, it might make them more comfortable to ask questions that we may have not have predicted that they were going to have.
100%. Thank you so much. Okay, we'll call one more person and then I'll move it along. Sadie Yang, Yang, Yang. If you could unmute yourself, tell me your perspective on this and tell me, to add to Gerardo's comment, why do you think, even knowing that this is not the right call, leadership teams tend to try and sort of sweep it under the rug anyway?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Melanie. It's more of, I want to say, maybe conflict of avoidance. It's almost as if they don't want to either receive a negative feedback in terms of their leadership, management, just even maybe in terms of maybe their skill set or whatever it may be, saying this leader doesn't know what they're talking about, or, and so it's going through that. And then also just learning now that I'm cleaning up after all of these like things that I've been kind of led on for months or even a few years. And then now you have to go back to open up an investigation or just to kind of learn through the process in terms of what was the cause or what happened through all of this that has led to what's really currently like kind of blowing up in the moment. So that's where I see it as.
Thank you so much, Sadie. I think what you say is quite astute, right? I think that a lot of times we lead with fear.
Right.
Right? Yeah. And so it's sort of these things that I'm scared of. And listen, I want to have a little bit of empathy for a second here, right? I think that for a long time, right, companies functioned in such a way that was sort of like one directional, right? And I only talk about specific things. And also there are all these lines of separation between the most senior, like the CEO and someone else, and anyone who's not at the exec level at the company, right? And then we saw around 2020, especially when everybody went remote, there was this shift, right? This push for more transparency, this push for more accountability, this push for, CEOs to really be the face of their company and talk to everyone. And that was new and that was scary. And unfortunately, some people didn't do a good job of it. And there was a lot of backlash. And right. And so I want to acknowledge that, like, yeah, I get it. There is a little bit of fear in not saying the right thing and getting it wrong and not having a perfect solution. And it's worth exploring. However, to everyone's point, right? Toxic positivity is very rarely the solution. It can be tempting, and yet, if you do it, what it will almost certainly lead to is employees feeling gaslit. Like, really, are you really trying to make me think that this is not a problem, right? Or that I shouldn't be feeling this way? Thinking that the leadership team is out of touch. Why are you focusing on this big celebration? Why did you just spend money on this new, I don't know, ping pong table or this new swag when we've been struggling here with not getting the merit increases that we've wanted, or not having the budget to achieve on our goals, or not having the budget for that new headcount, and you just went ahead and spent all that money on that thing, right? It can feel out of touch. Believing the leadership team just doesn't care. No, they know, they just don't care. And so there's no point in speaking up because they're not listening, right? I'm seeing a couple of people having some conversations here. This is great. I love it. Please keep it going. I always look at the transcripts afterwards because I learned so much from you all. Now, does this mean that we should endlessly wallow in bad news? No, I want to be clear. That is not what I'm saying. I'm not saying we should have a 2-hour session where we just talk about all the things that have gone wrong and why and apologize profusely, right? No, that's not what I'm saying. An apology might be warranted. I don't know. It depends on the context, but that's not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying is we shouldn't ignore if there's an elephant in the room. Okay. Now, I want to just acknowledge some of the tough things that have happened in the past year for many, many companies, right? It's been a year of mass layoffs. We've seen this just with some of the attendees on the call today. We've seen employees being expected to do more with less. We've seen revenue targets continuing to increase, business goals just getting harder. And let's be real, the world has also been a really tough place the past year and more, right? Tough economic times, horrific world events, okay? Acknowledging the thing, though, doesn't have to be overly complicated. I think that oftentimes when people see a list like this, they think, oh my gosh, I've spent hours preparing this perfect statement and it's going to be, 5 pages and I'm going to take up 20 minutes of the next all hands to just talk about how horrible this thing is and go into specifics. I don't think that is actually what employees are looking for. I think that what our employees are looking for is just a very high level acknowledgement, like, I get it, it's a thing, our eyes are on it, here's what we're thinking of doing, here are the steps that we have in mind. And by the way, if you have any ideas of your own, please send them our way. I think that's really all that most employees are really looking for. And I'll be quiet for a second so you can look at this sample language of what that could look like, obviously with some tweaks to customize it to your situation, but here's what that could look like. I'll read it aloud for anyone who learns better through listening. We get that things are tough right now. And transparently, we're not certain how much longer it's going to be before things feel better. What we do know is that it's going to take time and intentionality, and we're going to do our best to do exactly that. Here are some steps we're currently taking to figure out the path forward. See, I haven't even promised a path yet. I'm just saying we're taking some steps to figure out that path forward, and we welcome any ideas, questions, or feedback in the meantime. That's it, right? Doesn't have to be super complicated, doesn't have to be, this big, I'm promising you to, it's actually worse if you promise things you can't deliver on, right? Just keep it simple, be heartfelt, be honest, and have a sight line towards action, okay? All right, tip number 3, we're at the finish line all. Community. And I know, this can sound so fluffy, but I promise you it is worth investing some time in this. I'm gonna do another pulse check question. Scale of 1 to 5. I'm very curious to see the answers here. I actually don't know what they're going to be. 5 being I agree, 1 being I don't. I have people I can lean on for support at work. Oh my gosh, this fills my heart with happiness. I love this. I'm seeing so many 5s. This is great, great, great. Okay, I'm seeing some lower scores. Okay, so we're gonna do both sides of the spectrum because I'm very curious to see how this feels in action, so on and so forth. Let's do Shelby DeWitt, DEWITT. You gave a 5 and you said 100%. First of all, let me just say how happy I am for you. That's amazing that you have people you can lean on. And second, tell me a little bit more about this. Who are the people that you feel you can feel comfortable to lean on, and what does that feel like? What can you go to them with?
Yeah, I am very blessed. I am an HR generalist for a very small HR team, and my director of HR is absolutely fantastic. I get the opportunity to rant at her during our one-on-ones, both work and personal stuff. I have the opportunity to really kind of drill down into the things that I like and take the initiative on the projects that I enjoy, which I think is fantastic. But also our C-suite is fantastic. This is my first time where I have weekly meetings with our CTO, our COO, that really kind of focus on my development as a professional. And that has made all the difference this year. So I am very, very lucky to have a solid C-suite and a solid boss that I can lean on when things get tough.
I love that so much. And I don't know if you can tell, but even in your tone of voice as you were chatting about it, you could hear sort of that happiness and motivation, right? You could hear that sense of community, like, oh my gosh, I love working here. Oh my gosh, I have people I can lean on. And let me make an assumption, tell me if this is right or wrong. I would assume then, based on what you're saying, that when you have a problem, when you're struggling with something and you go to someone, you don't have like this sort of defeatist attitude of like, oh my gosh, what's the point? You have sort of like a, oh, good, I'm excited to talk to this person about this thing because I think I'm going to get some valuable feedback. Is that
Absolutely. And sometimes it is a little bit defeated. It has been a hard year for us, just like everybody else, but knowing that I'm not alone and kind of having that support of like, here's this problem, like it seems really big and scary, but having people I can lean on to work through it has been amazing.
Truly so happy for you. That's great. And let me say happy for everyone else who gave these 4s and 5s and even 3s. Let me call on someone who maybe gave a little bit of a lower score. So we've got Elizabeth Cheppel. Let me know if I'm mispronouncing that. Elizabeth, if you could unmute yourself, you gave a 2. I'm curious to know a little bit more about this. And for the record, I want to give, because I know, talking live can be a little scary sometimes. It could literally be you're a team of 1 in HR and right, like who can you go to? Elizabeth, tell me a little bit more about why this is a 2 for you and what impact that has, what that feels like in your day to day.
Yeah, certainly. You pronounced it perfectly. Thank you so much. It's a weird one. Yes, I am an HR team of 1, so that is part of it. I will say though that I report into our director of operations, and they are actually someone I can go to. I think I have struggled with being an HR team of 1, and I guess the guilt of like. I struggle with asking for help. So the 2 is a little bit on me. Because I do think there are some resources, but then it is also, being a team of 1.
You know what, though? I think you make such a great point, though, because I bet that you are not alone, right? I bet that there are employees who struggle to ask for help. I bet that there are employees who maybe feel like, I don't know where to go, or I'm a team of 1, or what do I say, or how do I say it, or I don't know, I'm extrapolating here, but like maybe I don't want to feel like the person who comes to the table with problems, right? And so they're scared to say a thing, right? Let me ask, what does that feel like then when you do have a problem and you feel like, I don't know who I can turn to?
I get a lot of sort of analysis paralysis, I feel like, in those situations. But support groups like this, like Troop HR, like other colleagues that I've had in the past of HR have been a huge help to try to work past that.
So, first of all, let me just say it's so good that you do have outside external communities. Anyone who doesn't, please, I encourage you, build out those communities. That's why I come to these webinars, join our peer coaching sessions, join Troop HR, all those things. But yeah, and I'm seeing in the comments, and based on what you said as well, it can lead to analysis paralysis, right? So being a little bit less effective at my job, being slower at my job, burnout, I'm seeing in the comments, right? These things have real risks, right? When we don't have a sense of community at work. And so I really do want to emphasize that having a lack of community at work, it's a high risk factor. This is a critical business risk. And I put it in those terms because I know that when you go to leadership teams, if you just say, hey, we need community, right? It can feel like this fluffy thing. It's not needed. No, this is a critical business risk. When employees feel disconnected at work, their motivation goes down, their productivity goes down, their creativity goes down. Also, increased cynicism, reduced trust. That's when you start getting those really angry questions that are like, is this rhetorical? Like, it doesn't feel like you really had a question. It just feels like you wanted to vent at me or maybe yell at me right now, right? That's when you start to get, lack of empathy, lack of understanding from your employees, because they don't feel like they have a sense of community. They don't see you as a person. They just see you as, the man, the HR, whatever the case may be. You start to break down that sort of human element when you don't have a sense of community. And there are fewer opportunities for support problem solving, right? There'll be a problem, but that person doesn't necessarily know who to go to or feel comfortable going to someone, right? Which is all bad news, very bad news for both the people team and the business, okay? Now, the flip side and good news is building a sense of community at work actually comes with very high opportunity. It's the opposite of everything I just said, right? You surface risks and problems sooner. People feel more motivated. There's a problem, but you know what? I know there's going to be a solution. I'm going to go to this person. We're going to talk about what the path forward looks like, right? And It's the distribution of a people workload, right? Instead of going straight to HR every time they have a problem, your employees will start to lean on each other, which is very, very nice for everyone, for their own growth, but also for you who, you probably don't have time to answer every single question every time a manager is having an issue with a direct report, right? The catch, of course, is you can't build community with a pizza party. I'm sure we all know this, right? You can't do that. But the question then is like, what can you do to build community, right? I propose that what you need to do to build community is to lean into fostering meaningful interactions, right? Meaningful interactions with the goal of helping people feel seen while building strong relationships. And I want to give some specific examples because I think, that sounds very high level, like, thanks, Melody, but like, how do I do that, right? Here are some examples of things that we've explored at Athena that have worked well for us, okay? One, maybe, right? If you're trying to be like strategic with your spend, ditch the company swag this year and instead creative gift exchange, right? Let me explain that a little bit more, right? Company swag is company swag. And I'm sure that for many people, it's like, oh, rah, rah, get excited about the company. But what did that meaningfully change? Like, what impact did that swag have? Did a hat actually make someone feel more committed to the company? Did a hat with the logo actually make someone feel closer to the people that they work with on the team? I don't think so. Personally, I don't think so, right? What if instead you said, you know what? The money that we would have spent on swag, I'm going to give to you all, not just to give it to you, but I'm going to give it to you so that you can get a gift for someone else at the company. And as part of that, everybody's going to fill out a thing to share some fun facts about themselves. So you can share like, what kinds of gifts you would enjoy, that sort of thing, right? Now you start to actually connect with people. Now you might have a new friend at the company, right? Now you get excited because you're doing this thing for someone else, right? That's the kind of thing that feels more meaningful. You actually got to know a new person. Second, and this is the one I want to talk about a little bit more, facilitated group discussions and peer coaching. I'll give an example that we did at Athena recently. We actually had a prompt where we said, hey, it's end of year. People tend to be more stressed at end of year. I want you all to spend, and we put people into breakout groups. I want you to spend the next 15 minutes talking about what's the thing that's stressing you out the most right now. And then I'm going to provide you with peer coaching questions to give each other with follow-up. So for example, okay, how long has this been going on for? Who have you shared this with? What have you been doing to try and tackle this? What's worked? What hasn't? How much longer do you think you can take on this? Who do you think you could lean on for support, right? You give them those peer coaching questions to lean on and you help them work through it together. And in that way, you maybe just helped 100, 200, 300 people in the space of an hour, right? Because you distributed that workload. And at the same time, that person just made a new friend that they can lean on, right? Hey, I'm going to go to you the next time that I have an issue because I know you and you helped me through that stress question last time, right? And then finally, switching it up at your company town halls and your company meetings and your team meetings, whatever the case may be. How many town halls focus exclusively on the leadership team, on business goals, right? On, these really perfunctory things that can feel, to be honest, quite removed from your employees, right? What if instead we not switch, but pepper it in, right? Some employee life updates, right? Maybe somebody had a new pet. Share that with the company. Everybody loves a new puppy pic, right? Maybe somebody just got engaged. Share that with the company. Of course, if people feel comfortable, right? Share that with the company. Help people celebrate in that joy, feeling connected to real people, especially if you're in a remote environment, right? Feel more connected and human. Maybe celebrating small wins, right? What was a cross-functional thing that went really well? What was an example of somebody who managed up and it was so helpful to their manager? I didn't know you were feeling this way. Now we got to solve this problem together, right? Employee interviews. Now, caveat here, you want to keep them brief. Nobody enjoys a 30-minute extended awkward employee interview, but a 5-minute sort of rapid fire, like, hey, how'd you get into your field? Hey, what's your favorite unexpected hobby? Hey, like, what vacation plan do you have, planned next for your PTO? Just little things that make people feel more connected. And even I'd go so far as to say, go a little wacky with it, the fun stuff, right? If your company, so I'll give an example. Athena's in the compliance training space. What if we found a cool TikTok just making fun of compliance training, the worst harassment prevention training you ever saw? We watch it, we laugh together, and we get to celebrate that. Thank goodness Athena's harassment prevention training is way better than that, right? Just a little thing to make people feel excited and connected and just a little levity to the realities of some stressful days. Let me pause. we're at the question and question and answer section. So take a minute to drop any comments. And if you have requests for resources, please also drop those. We read through these afterwards, so we'll incorporate them to the extent that we can. And before I jump into your questions, I would love it if you all could do me a favor and answer a couple of survey questions that we're putting out. We really, really love getting feedback and information from you all. We find you all to be very, very helpful. So I'm going to be quiet for 15 seconds. They're very quick questions. Go ahead and answer them. Oh, and just for anyone who's filling this out, 5 is I agree with this statement. 1 is I disagree with this statement. So give a 5 for number 1 if you think your company's harassment prevention training really makes your team look good, and a 1 if you think like, I don't know, I'm embarrassed to put my name to this thing. Okay, all, I think that's enough time. So I'm going to go ahead and start kicking off with some questions from you all. Again, if you have any new questions coming in, please put them in. I will start with whichever questions got upvoted. So we've got one. How did you generate buy-in for the Feedback Fridays? I feel if I were to suggest that at my current company, there wouldn't be a lot of engagement due to a perceived lack of safety. Okay, so in full transparency, at Athena, we integrated this from the very start. Like when we were little, like 20 people, we put this in, and it's just mandatory. So when a new hire starts, this gets added to their calendar. It's not like this optional thing, like maybe it's just like, and it's like a norm in the same way that people are expected to have one-on-ones with their manager. They're just expected to have Feedback Fridays. If the manager's not doing it, that's a performance issue. Now, if this is new for you and you're trying to incorporate it, here's my personal recommendation: pilot it. So pick a trusted team that you work with that already has buy-in for the people team and get their buy-in to test it out, right? And have clear metrics for success so that by the end of, I don't know, the pilot period could be a quarter, right? What are the things that got better about it? What feedback did you surface sooner than you otherwise might have had you not had this in place? Maybe have 3 questions that you ask at the beginning of the test and 3 questions the same questions you ask again at the end. So 1, I feel comfortable giving my manager feedback. 2, that I'm not sitting on there's no feedback I've been sitting on for more than a week before sharing with my manager. 3, I feel like the company or my manager truly values what I have to say. Ask those questions at the start, ask them at the end, and see how those scores change across that quarter, right? And so that's the kind of thing that you could do, pilot it. But again, if you're going to pilot anything, have clear stats and metrics that you can measure and then share afterwards. Okay, let's see. What else? Oh, we got another one upvoted. Okay, how do we manage from employees sharing their discontent to the point of toxicity with how companies work in general against their company? Okay, so this is a tricky one because I don't have all the specifics, right? I don't know who said what and what's the context of that company, so on and so forth. Here's what comes to mind for me. One is, I think that you need to explore are there deeper rooted issues here, right? So where is this discontent coming from? Is it coming from previous employee baggage, or is it coming from something that we as a company did, right? And then I think also pointing people in a solution-oriented way. What are you trying to achieve, right? How can I help you? Do you genuinely, right? And word it the way you need to word it, but okay, I know that you shared this feedback with this person. What was your goal and what was your intent? Where did you think that would go? Okay, what are you trying to achieve? Okay, what might be a more effective way to do that? Just logicking people through it. And then I will say the bigger thing, to be honest, is just being really direct and transparent around it. And remember, transparent acknowledgement. If this is actually a widespread issue, right? In the previous examples, that's like it's 1 or 2 people, right? Maybe you talk to them directly about it, right? If it's a wider spread issue, I would actually recommend that you just say a thing, right? Like, hey, all, we've noticed that this is a thing that's happening. Unfortunately, we don't feel equipped to help you if it's going through these channels. We're not telling you that you can't talk to whoever you want to talk to. Go for it. And also, we want to actually help. And so if you want our help, here are some more productive solutions that will make sure that your feedback gets to us so that we can take action. And then if you do that, you have to really lean into showing your work, right? Accountability, highlight, spotlight examples of, hey, this person, shared this feedback and here's action we were able to take about it. Make a big, to do about it so that people see that, they get buy-in, that sort of thing. Okay. Let's see. We got some more questions. I think there's time for 2 more questions. Okay, when staffing isn't at the ideal model and the workload keeps on coming, are there tips to keep up your morale? So I think, similar to what I said earlier, being transparent about it and acknowledging it, hey, we get that this is a thing. Things are tough right now. Here's the finish line, or we don't know when the finish line is, right? Employees want to know that you're thinking about it, that you have it on your radar. If you're not talking about it, it can feel like it's going to go on indefinitely. No one cares. No one's supporting us. The second thing I would say is, I personally think that these situations are actually great opportunities to get more efficient, right? You could continue to work in the same ways that you have been, and then of course not be able to fit everything into a 40-hour work week. Or you could say, do you know what? There's more work and less time in which to do it. How could we be more efficient? What are things that are not required? Let's look at our meetings. How many meetings do we have on the calendar? Could we cut some of those? Let's look at our time management and prioritization. Are we as good as we could be on this? Let's look at our cross-functional partnerships. Are the right people spending the right amount of time on the right amount of work? Or are we sort of like running around like chickens with our heads cut off because we don't know who should be doing what and it's taking more time to solve the problem? Okay, let me see. Okay, so I got one anonymous question here. Okay, in a remote company, when we try to do these fun things in company town halls, it's met with radio silence. How to encourage people to participate and engage. Okay, I'm going to say like maybe a controversial thing, but I really stand by it, okay? I'm actually not personally, and I'm not saying that, to each their own. My personal approach is I'm not a fan of trying to force people to like a thing. If a person doesn't like a thing, I take that as data that I did the wrong thing or I did it in the wrong way. And so I might, if I was in this situation, like I did a thing and people didn't receive it well, then I would kind of be like, okay, what are some other things to explore? Or I might say, hey, all, here was a thing I tried and here was my intent. It doesn't seem like it's working. We're getting crickets and that's fine. Thank you for that valuable feedback that this was not the right thing. I would love to open it up to you all. What are you all looking for? What would make these town halls more exciting for you? I would try to pivot and work with them versus trying to like force, like, what was that saying? Like a square peg in a round hole. I would ask the questions and adjust appropriately. Okay. We are just about at time, so I'm going to do a quick Athena spotlight. I would love if you all could stay on for the next few minutes. And again, if you have any other questions or resources you'd like to request, drop them in the comments and we'll take a look at that afterwards and send them in our follow-up resource email. Okay, so quick Athena spotlight. I've talked about our harassment prevention training a few times over the course of this call. I just want to flag to you that Athena has a harassment prevention training. It's actually the reason that I joined the company. I just think it is the most inclusive, the most relatable, the most relevant content out there. And I want to share that, I think especially as we talk about improving morale at companies, especially as we think about how do we get that buy-in and trust and minimize that cynicism from our employees, I think it's important that we look at all the different things that we're doing. Oftentimes, if you think about your compliance training, it's the last thing on your list, right? I don't have time for compliance training is this thing I need to get out of the way. And maybe it's not that great of a training, right? Maybe you're using the free service that's used from like the state, right? Maybe it's a training that people walk out of your training and they make more jokes because they can't take it seriously, right? This is all message signaling that you are sending to your employees. And so especially as you're thinking about building that trust, especially as you're thinking about trying to act on some of the feedback that they're sharing, improving morale, I'd highly encourage you to think about what your harassment prevention and any of your compliance trainings are doing for you and your culture building. At Athena, our trainings have a variety of multimedia, different, we have comic strips, we have videos, we have GIFs, like the ones that you're seeing here to keep people engaged. We also use really relatable examples that are actually helpful to employees. What happens if you accidentally misgender someone? What happens if your manager gives you feedback that feels gendered? What happens if you give feedback that you didn't realize is gendered, right? What happens if somebody DMs you something inappropriate? What do you do, right? These really relatable examples are going to make all the difference in building that trust between you and your employees. I want to say thank you so much for joining us. If anybody's interested in learning more about Athena, you can check out our demo here. If you are under 50 employees, you can actually be set up in under 5 minutes on your own, no demo required. Thank you all. As always, I'm very excited to read everything in the comments. Again, if you have any questions, let me know. Give me a follow on LinkedIn. We can keep in touch. And I hope you all have a great rest of your year. I am rooting for you. You can make it. You're going to pull through, and January is going to come faster than you know it. And we're going to be planning for 2024. All right, I will see you around. Bye.